if I'm seeing myself as maybe a new business leader, or if I'm a business owner that's experiencing some pain, I'd circle back and say, where could I improve my communication?
The leader's the realist who is able to truly say, this is where we are. This is the reality.
If leaders want to know, like, where am I in that? Mm-hmm. The only time they need to check in with themselves is Sunday night. Mm. Right. How are you feeling about work tomorrow?
You want to find that sweet spot in between hellish conflict and completely and utterly ignoring what's going on.
It's been said, leaders who don't listen enough usually end up with people who have nothing to say, right? You're not cultivating that. It's going to be a problem. Welcome back, everyone, to the Living Richly podcast. We're so glad that you've joined us. We are so grateful for the Living Richly Nation and your ongoing support and of the show. And I'm thrilled again to welcome back my colleagues at Rhapsody, master coaches, each and every one. Great to have you guys back. Well, apparently they're doing something right.
I guess so.
Great to have you guys back today.
It's so good to be here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not often that we get the opportunity to all be together, and even less all together in studio. And today I'm super excited about this episode because we're going to be talking to leaders. Whether they're the owner of a business or a leader in a business, leadership is a thing. It's both a very satisfying, fulfilling journey, but it's one that's also filled with tons and tons of challenges. And we work with leaders every single day, and I think we've got a few things we might be able to say to that. But let's start with the fact that most leaders, whether they own their own business or run their own department, that's not how they got their start. They started in a job, in a role, and decided at one point or got promoted at one point. And we talked about it on the last show when we talked about teams. They find themselves now in a situation where they're carrying all those skill sets with them, but they're also coming face to face with all kinds of things they don't know and haven't experienced before, right?
Yeah, like if you think about the three hats from the E-Myth Revisited, he talks about technical hat, then you've got the managerial hat, and then you've got the entrepreneurial hat.
Right.
And most of the time, we see people come in and they're excellent at the technical hat, right? Because that's how they got started.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then you start talking about some of the issues associated with managing their people, managing their finances, managing their clients. And then you start to see a little bit of wiggle room starting to happen there. Then you move on to the third hat, which is the innovation hat. This is where you're marketing your company, you're coming up with new product lines, or you're looking at maybe new software or new hardware, new anything. And that's where the whole house of cards starts to fall down.
Yeah. And again, whether you're a business owner or just someone who's new to leadership, even running a department, where all of a sudden now you're responsible for other human beings, like that can be a pretty anxiety producing thing.
Yeah. And I think when you don't realize what you're getting yourself into, the idealism is, I'm going to just start my own business and I'll be my own boss and nobody will tell me what to do. And
I'll be making more money, more free time.
I'll work my own hours and then 3 years later.
Good joke. Good joke.
Start a business, so they said. It will be fun, they said. That was so cute that you felt that way. Yeah, it is a big shift, as Catherine just said, to move from one role, one mindset to the next, and all of the anxiety that can come with that as you move into that leadership role,
and the imposter syndrome, right? We see it all the time where you've got. It's almost like we think when we move into a leadership role that we're just supposed to know how to lead, and there's thousands, tens of thousands of books that have been written on the topic. There's all kinds of conflicting ways you can lead. These books that they all talk, this is the way, and this is how you do it, and people are lost in that, and they're afraid to raise their hand and ask for help on how to be a leader, because that might suggest now they're the wrong person for that role, or that they should never have been brought into that role, or they should never have taken over and started a business, all of these things. So the anxiety, and it leads to so much fear that people have, and a fear of even acknowledging or saying, hey, I'm not what I look to appear to be.
Yeah. One of my clients, we meet twice a month. And she has very specifically said, I want one of the sessions to be business coaching, sales, marketing, hiring, and I want one session to be leadership.
Yeah.
I need to grow as a leader.
Yeah.
And so that intention, I think, is so important.
Yeah.
So many times we use the quote, things are the way they are because they got that way. And like I'm the type of leader I am because it happened. And here, instead of being really intentional, having a growth strategy or a leadership strategy to develop.
And hasn't been a common theme in all of our conversations, whether it be building the business that you've always dreamed of, building a dream team, a high-performing team to help you do just that. And now we're talking about you as a leader, how all of it doesn't happen by accident, that you have to set an intention, you have to be deliberate. I mean, things will evolve, things will grow, but what they grow into may not be what you signed up for.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And we don't want to get there by accident. We want to get there on purpose. We don't want to drift into it. We want to decide our way into it.
I think that was Harvard Business.
I think it was something like that.
It's always Harvard. Always Harvard, yeah.
But you were talking about, that people think, hey, I'm just going to know how to lead, right? Same thing holds true for managing people. And I say to people, why would you think you'd know how to manage people? Did you go to school for it? Right. And by the way, even if you told me you'd gone to school for it, I'd tell you, so what? So why would you think you'd know how to lead? Why would you think you'd know how to manage?
But I think you go into it many times, perhaps like first-time parents, right? Where you think, I've got this. I've read the book. I've read the book. I don't want to be like,
what to expect when you're expecting.
Right? Yeah. I'm not going to do what my parents did. I'm going to do better.
Right.
And, it takes just a few days often before you're kind of standing there feeling completely incompetent and in over your head. And I think that's probably a similar journey for first-time leaders, right? And I think perhaps we forget that when we've been leading for a while. And I think it's important, as we mentioned last time, that leaders that have been leading for a while, you got to remember what that first-time leadership role feels like. Because if your people are not properly supported, we're really setting them up to fail. And no one likes to feel incompetent. I mean, that's just the reality, right? Whether you're the business owner or a business leader within an organization, who wants to feel incompetent or lacking confidence? It's just not a nice place to be.
There's a great opportunity in there, though, too, because so many of the leaders, you're right, we don't know what we're stepping into. Yeah. We think we know, we have a picture, it's not true. And, but then we step into it and we encounter reality. And I think then it's all about like our posture about how we do that. And if we can do that honestly with ourselves and go, oh, this part's new, I need to work on this part. You're in a great spot. Yeah. It's when people, I find people will adopt that language of the imposter when they feel like they're hiding it. Where if they just can accept, this is a new set of skills and activities you haven't done before. Let's build them.
I'm not an imposter. I'm just new.
You're just new.
Right.
Totally different. Yeah. I think imposter kicks in when people have been in a role for a while and they still have, and they've been treading kind of quietly and they're afraid they'll be found out to do that. And that actually speaks to the culture of the organization.
No, it does. Yeah.
Is it safe to fail in an organization?
Or to put your hand up and say, you know what? I thought I knew how to do this, but I'm realizing now that I'm actually doing this, I got some gaps here and I could use some help.
Well, let's talk about some essential business skills that you think a leader are essential to being a good leader, whether you're a leader for the first time. Obviously, if you're new in your journey, the skills you focus on might be different. Actually, where you are in your journey matters a lot about what skills matter most. But what would be some non-negotiable business skills? We're going to talk about leadership specific skills in terms of leading a team later. But what are some specific business skills that you think are super critical for a leader to focus on and develop?
Well, the first thing that leaps into my mind is the skills surrounding communication.
Yeah, that's what
I know it is. It's a leadership skill, of course, but it's also just this. If you're not effective in your communication, if you don't have communication mastery, then you're just going to have confusion and headaches and misunderstanding and doubling back, circling back all the time, fixing things. So I really think if I'm seeing myself as maybe a new business leader, or if I'm a business owner that's experiencing some pain, I'd circle back and say, where could I improve my communication? Every organization is the sum of its conversations. Yeah. So if you're having really powerful conversations, you'll have a powerful organization. Yeah. But if you're having weak, disorganized, conversations that don't take you anywhere.
Foggy conversations.
And you're going to be experiencing frustration.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and that's where, as you're describing that, because you kind of go, yeah, like we all know communications, right, is going to be at the heart of it. But it's almost like, as you're describing, I was thinking, it's almost like the leader needs to be able to not just communicate well, but to enable comprehension. So that they're engaging in communication activities, and you can do it really well, but you've only succeeded once there's actually comprehension that's played out. People actually understood. Say, well, I sent all the emails and I did the Slack message and I did the town hall, and like, what else do I need to do? I'm like, do you have comprehension yet? Because until there's comprehension in the organization, job's not done.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's, I think, like where the listening skills come in, right? What's the old adage? You've got one mouth, two ears. Listen twice as much as you speak. And I think a lot of leaders think that communication comes down to their ability to tell, their ability to say what's going on. Now, I think all of us could resonate with this one. We have yet to encounter an organization that over communicates. It's a common issue among all of the clients that we have worked with, and we help them. Some of the feedback we get regularly is because of the work we do with them and their teams, that they're having some of the best conversations they've ever had. And that's part of what's taking their results to the next level. But listening is such a critical skill. I think it's a non-negotiable that all of us could do better with, right? Relationships tend to break down, even outside of work. Where do they tend to break down first? On the communication front. True. Where are they going to break down in the workplace? That's where they usually break down first, right?
Yeah. And when you think about communication, what's the line? Communicate until you think you've communicated enough, and then you've got some more to do.
Right.
I say keep going until people say, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Let them tell you to stop.
Yeah.
Right.
Communicate
Got it.
nauseam.
Yeah. I still remember a client of mine, they had, they declared that the coming year would be called, the theme would be the year of communication. This was an interesting leader, and we made some headway, but he had
interesting leader.
There was an interesting vision of leadership there about, it was hard for us. And so for this next generation, they need to figure it out too. And it needs to be hard for them. That was basically right. So that was difficult context to work in, but they declared this would be the year of communication. So they have the town hall at the beginning of the year. He announces that, casts that vision. And then we're like first quarter, he had missed a bunch of sessions, and I finally catch up with him, and I was like, how's it going? Oh, it's worse than ever. And I said, well, when's the last time you reminded them and pointed to what you're doing? And he says, well, I told them once. That should have been enough.
Yeah.
Right.
How often have we heard that?
Right.
I told them.
Yeah.
I'm like,
why don't they get it?
Yeah. But I want to circle back to what you said about, the comprehension, because again, most leaders think communication is delivering information, whatever way that is. Oh, I communicate through email. I communicate in meetings. I communicate through text and conversations, but it's about all they're doing is delivering a bunch of information. That's not communication.
Yeah.
At any level, right? And it is this notion of, are you providing and creating an environment where we use this language when we talked about teams, where people can weigh in, so they'll be able to buy in. And so the notion of, are there deliberate moments, meetings, environment where you are allowing that two-way and even sometimes in every different direction communication happening.
And is it safe? Is it a safe environment? Yeah, that's important.
Well, I've heard it's been said, leaders who don't listen enough usually end up with people who have nothing to say. Right? You're not cultivating that. It's going to be a problem. If most of your communication, if you're a leader and asking yourself, I wonder if I have a communication problem, I'm going to just say you probably do, because we all do. But if most of your communication is a monologue, you're doing it wrong, right? We need to be encouraging dialogue within our organizations. If we hope to see engagement, if we hope to see creativity, if we hope to see the genius of the collective unleashed, right, as opposed to it all resting on the shoulders of the owner, I think communication is a critical skill. What are some other skills that you would say are non-negotiable? And I agree with you. It's a leadership skill, but that one's a critical business skill right across the board.
I think it's a critical skill for a leader in a business environment to be able to think strategically. and to step away from the tactical and the day-to-day, and to be able to look at the business from that 10,000-foot view, to be able to see where you're going, where you are, and how you're going to get there, and all of the components of that. But that would be one that comes to mind.
Well, I couldn't agree more. The strategic thinking is missing for so many organizations. How many organizations that we work with that when we start working with them, we're like, so what's your strategic plan for this year? And they look at you like,
oh, hold on. Let me just, let me go find it.
Let me go find it if they even have one.
You did it 14 years ago. And
it's there with the vision, mission, values.
Right. It's
That's
in the same
it is.
folder on your computer.
And that's so true. And I think also that if an organization is, or a leader is going to be working on that, they've also got to be working on the idea of, I don't know what I don't know. And so as coaches, we know, like we use the phrase, are they coachable? So if you're a leader out there, are you coachable?
Right.
Because that's the difference between little baby steps moving forward and leaps.
Absolutely. I mean, the being teachable, coachable, 100%.
I think there's a piece for leadership around being able to describe reality as it is. You see a lot of managers, leaders over-responding, under-responding, overstating, understating, over-dramatizing, not recognizing, where we don't want to overstate what's happening or understate. We want to state it so that we're dealing with an evidence-based reality of what's happening, evidence-based statement of what risks are we facing, so that you can actually start to make measured, meaningful decisions based on an accurate description of what is. And to recognize, I don't know, I might be afraid of this, but I'm making that up. I don't have any evidence that that's true, but this is where I have actual evidence of what is real here and what's actually happening.
You're the one holding your business together, but what if your business is actually holding you hostage? At Rhapsody Strategies, we help business leaders just like you stop spinning their wheels, start building real systems and strong teams and lives they actually love. High performance without the burnout. That's the game you want to play. If you're ready, go to rhapsodystrategies.com and let's get started.
I so right on. A few months ago, I was having a conversation with the leader of an organization who, no matter what was going on, had a positive spin on it, right? Like, oh no, everything's great and we're going to do great. And all of their team was like, this is the furthest thing from great. Like we are in shit show mode here. No, we're gonna just like it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be great. And I took them through. And again, there's a great episode by Ben Bergeron that we have. We took them through those 5 mindsets of from victim to and going right up that chain. This person was the ultimate optimist, and he thought that a leader was supposed to be the positivity driver in the organization. And I said, no, the leader's the realist, who is able to truly say, this is where we are. This is the reality. We don't know this, and this is not working, and this is
they're able to hold both the positive and the negative in tension, and as a result, make better decisions. Right. So to your point, they're not over rotating as much. Let's get a couple more out on the table in terms of critical business leadership skills that are often nurtured or valued.
So one, I don't like the category, so I'm going to unexplain the category as soon as I say it. But time management. So it's not about time. It's about energy and attention and focus. And it's knowing where to focus and when. And you have to start to be able to, one, do it personally, but do it with your direct immediate team, with the others around you as well, to say, where is the energy and attention going of the people and processes in this organization? And is it going to what's productive or not? And how do we know? Yeah. And I think it gets very personal around what are you doing? How do you spend your day? Do you really need to send that email or be at that meeting or whatever? But it's that energy, attention, focus piece is a critical skill.
Well, I love that you used the word personal there, because a second area of leadership that I think is critical and that we do a lot of work in, and is in the area of personal mastery, helping leaders master their internal world. That includes, where does my energy and my focus go, right? But let's talk a little bit about that priority management or focus management, because I do think it's an area that many leaders struggle in. Steve, what do you think about that?
When I heard this statement, it blew my mind. Time management is pain management, because many times we avoid what hurts. So we don't spend time on what hurts us, what causes us. We avoid it, or we delay it, or procrastinate. And so learning to manage the pain, which might be often expressed in anxiety, feeling overwhelmed. I'm in over my head,
yeah.
so I'll avoid it.
Yeah.
And one of our phrases that we use is, what are you pretending not to see?
Right.
You know it's there. It's the elephant in the room, or now it's the elephant in the Zoom. And and when I heard that statement, I asked myself a simple question that really helped me tighten my focus. It was this question: where's my pain? Like, what tasks, what conversations, what questions about myself, my identity, what am I avoiding?
Right.
And if I can learn to manage the pain of those tasks or those people or those questions and spend time, and sometimes the pain is telling us where we actually need to spend time here, because there's so much anxiety and pain. Let's fix that or change that. Let's experience transformation.
In fact, I would suggest that if there's pain there, that's
right. The obstacle is the way.
Like 100% of the time, that's
the
where you.
function of pain is to say, pay attention to this.
Wow.
Right. Even physical pain.
Yeah.
Literally, when you're in physical pain, you're going to try to figure out what's wrong and address it. And the longer you ignore it, typically the pain doesn't just go away, that the issue gets worse. But I think we spend so much of our time, not forget leadership, just as human beings, numbing, running, and distracting from anything that's uncomfortable. Well, get into a leadership role, and all of a sudden the number of things that are uncomfortable just goes up a whole other level.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, it's a much higher stakes position, role. There's more demands being made of you. There's more expected of you. So man, learning how to manage discomfort, learning how to listen to pain and pay attention about what it may be teaching you of what you may need to work on, I think is critical.
Yeah.
And that really leads into another thing that we can work on as leaders, like internally, is the ability to have those painful conversations.
Right.
Yeah. So are you the type of person that avoids them? Or are you the type of person that embraces them? Because neither are good.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be embracing conflict. You want to be creating productive conflict.
Right.
You want to find that sweet spot in between hellish conflict and completely and utterly ignoring what's going on. And that requires skills.
100%.
It requires skills, and it requires courage, and it requires practice and a willingness to steps outside of your comfort zone.
Oh, big time. I just working with a group of leaders last week, and in the room were some brand new leaders that had just come up into what's like a team lead type of role. And as a result, they're finding themselves now, these folks were my colleagues, right? And like literally the folks I've been working with now all of a sudden, and again, the organization has done nothing to prep them for that or to give them tools for that. So when the topic of, well, it's about having difficult conversations comes up, yep, that's true. Don't know how to do that. So it scares the shit out of me. Like I don't have a framework. I don't have a model. I don't have, it's an area that we really need to equip leaders to be far better at, but we need to give them tools.
And what I love about the work that we do is that oftentimes business owners, leaders, they don't have time to be finding the best practices and frameworks, and
they got
and
other fish to fry.
So that's what we do.
Yeah.
We have our ear to the ground. We're listening for what's the new models, new frameworks, new approaches to help leaders be able to introduce it to their teams or embrace it themselves. And so this is why a coach can be such a great resource, because we're spending the time finding the tools that you need to help you grow and help your team grow. A few months
ago, I've got a new emerging leader who's doing quite well in business and being very successful, but he's trying to figure out his leadership style and how he wants to lead people. And I remember going into one of our coaching sessions a couple of months ago, and he said, "Okay, I figured it out." And I said, "Oh, okay."
Wow, he sounds convinced.
Yeah, this sounds interesting. He says, "I've decided I know what kind of leader I want to be. I'm going to be exactly like Elon Musk."
Oh,
and I'm going to dictate to people the way he does, because he gets shit done, and that's how it's going to work. I'm like, all right. try that out for a few months. Let me know how that works for you. Let me know how many of your employees you still have after that time. I said, no. You don't want to, don't try to be anyone else.
Right. Exactly.
Try to be you. Find the stuff within you. I said, everything you just described about Elon Musk, again, maybe it's made him successful. Maybe it's not. You can debate that, but none of those characteristics are found in you. I know you too well. That's not who you are. That would be so contrary to the kind of leader that you would want to be. But it was a funny, kind of like, okay, he's decided it, and this is exactly what he's going to emulate.
Well, we talk about mindful leadership more and more in the work that we do.
Mm-hmm.
Mindful leadership being, you need to figure out who you are. What is your what kind of leader do you want to be? I've been doing more and more of this work with my clients, helping them develop even a simple vision around what type of leader do they want to be remembered as.
Right.
The vast majority, we talk about the importance of vision, mission, and values at the corporate level, but how many leaders are even clear on what their personal values are, what their leadership mission and vision looks like?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be complicated, but if we don't have that for ourselves, we're going to borrow it or inherit it from all of our other experiences, and that's going to come with some good things and a lot of baggage.
Or we're going to take on the leadership style that the people in your organization are telling you need to be.
Right. Yeah.
And again, they don't necessarily know what they want. They know oftentimes you need to be this kind. You need to be more of an engaging, listening leader, because they need and want an engaging, listening leader. And they will put on you, just as we've talked about in our personal life. If you don't figure out what your values are, if you don't figure out who you are, you will live by somebody else's description of you and by somebody else's values. The same is true in leadership.
And that brings us into our beliefs. So what do I believe about myself?
Yeah.
What do I believe about those around me? What do I believe about the world I'm in? And even just to circle back a little bit about time. Time management's kind of a weird phrase. We're not really crazy about it, but what do I believe about time?
Right.
So there's two mindsets. You can have time affluence or time famine. And what you believe about time will dictate your energy, where you spend your time. Do you believe there's enough time to get everything done? How you doing? Well, I'm busy, frantic, rush. And
isn't it what's the most common when you ask someone how they're doing?
Busy.
How are you? Busy.
And
like
then
it's
and then they stop, and then they try to put it back on you. How are you? You're busy too. Right?
Yeah. It's almost like it's a badge of honor. Because I'm busy.
That's right.
And there's a great TED talk from a surgeon. I believe it's in a triage area, and they don't answer with busy. When they say, how are you doing? They don't say busy. They say ready. We are ready.
I
And
love
I
that.
know would be awkward maybe in an exchange, but
let's do it.
I figured out.
Well, it depends who you're talking to.
I
On a date. Okay,
I'm
let's-
ready. Whoa.
Easy
you
there.
doing?
Easy there, big fella.
So I take my dogs for dog park walks, and I talk to the neighbors, and I say, "How you doing?" And they say, "Busy." So I've rehearsed it, and they say, "How are you doing?" I say, "Well, it's a full life right now, but I'm ready for it." And they kind of look at me like, "Oh, that's interesting."
And then they walk away.
And then they run away.
Then they run away. But I know we feel pressured to buy into the belief system that there's not enough time, and I don't think that's true. We get to decide how we spend our time.
One of the you guys know that I'm a big fan. Wendy and I have done a number of times this challenge, and part of the challenge it's basically completing a bunch of tasks in every day that you have to complete them, and it's a mindset challenge. And the whole point of it is the real kind of heart of what's behind it is you have control of your day. And if you plan and schedule and do the things right, you can accomplish way more than you realize. So I have to do 2 workouts a day. I knew we were going to have a full day with recording today. I had to map it out and plan out when am I going to get my 2 workouts in to make sure that and that meant setting an alarm, getting up earlier than I would maybe normally get up in order to do that. But I have control over that. And the idea that time controls you that no leader, true leader, will ever use a phrase like that.
Well, let's just give up on the whole notion of controlling time or even managing time. Already, we have been in a conversation for just past 29 minutes since we launched into this podcast. Nobody here did anything to move the minute from one to the the next, to the next.
Yeah, but I
time
can
just elapsed, right?
I could just take the remote and pause it.
You could pause it. Time will continue. Rob, I know this is going to blow your mind. Time will continue even if you pause the timer. Whoa, right? So let's just, it's not about that. It's about managing our choices and our priorities within time, right?
100%.
And I think the best definition of wisdom, and there's a word that's not used enough in today's world of leadership. We just don't use it enough. We talk a lot about knowledge. Knowledge is power. How the person with all the knowledge, is going to rule the day. But you can have lots of knowledge and actually be quite unwise. Wisdom is, the way it was defined for me years ago, and I never forgot it, is the right thing, doing the right thing at the right time in the right measure. And I think a leader working on are you ever going to get all three perfect? No, perfection's never the goal. But when we're able to ask ourselves, what's the right thing to do in this situation? And is it actually the right time? Because we've all seen things introduced at was the right solution, but introduced at the wrong time. It's a colossal failure. But then even if it's the right thing at the right time, are we going to go full in on this real fast? Are we going to take our time? What does the right measure look like? We have far more control than we give ourselves credit for when it comes to our decisions and whatever else. Again, this whole notion of time and the use of it, managing our energy expectations, huge.
Yeah. So if what we believe about time is, I'm taking over the hosting job.
All right. Is that what you're doing?
That's what I'm doing right now. I'm hijacking.
Good job.
If our beliefs,
I'm going to take a break.
If our beliefs about time are important, how we spend our time, our energy around time, what are some other limiting beliefs that you bump into when you're coaching leaders and developing leaders? What are some of those belief ceilings that you experience with the leaders you coach?
I think probably one of the top ones for sure would be, as leaders, I don't know if it's a self-limiting belief or just a limiting belief, is that the people are not capable of doing or following.
We hear that so often.
Wow. Right, I don't trust.
I need to get run. I have to do it right. I have to do it myself. If I'm going to get it right, it's got to be me.
Right. That is so destructive. Yeah. You cannot grow or scale a business
you can't. You're so
if you don't trust your people to do the job.
Let's face it. If I've had leaders tell me, if I hear one more person tell me that in order to be a better leader, I need to delegate more, I might strangle somebody, right? They know it. We know that's the case. I think there are skill sets that are essential for any leader to have. We've talked about some of them here today. There's no way we can do them all justice in one episode. Mm-hmm. There's also the reality that it's about leveraging other people's strengths, giving other people opportunity to shine in areas that you don't, right? But delegation is a huge piece of that. Mm-hmm. But ego, loss of control, letting go, those are big obstacles.
And along those lines, I had a client recently that basically was saying that. I said, wouldn't it be amazing if we could clone you? Because since you are the one that does it right, let's clone you. And he goes, oh my God, I wish that that really could happen, because I would pay a lot of money for cloning. So I said, okay, I'm going to jack up our pricing because I'm about to clone you. Let's do that, right? And that was around then, let's create the right systems that allow your team to do it the way you do it.
Right.
And to be able to create that kind of environment.
A duplicatable system.
So I get what you say about, we think, if I don't ever, say the word delegation, I'm going to strangle someone who says delegation. It's because you're doing delegation wrong.
Yeah. Usually when people delegate, they abdicate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They just kind of go, okay, it's your problem now. They don't provide support, guidance, resources, check-ins, any kind of framework about expectations. And then it doesn't go well. And they're like, see, they're an idiot.
But
right, they blame the person.
100%. When you look at the root, the etymology of the word delegate, it comes from the same root word as the word legacy. And I think a big problem is we have a belief around delegation. I love the abdicate piece. I think that's really true. I think it's I want to get stuff off my desk and onto yours, right? But delegation is much more than the passing on of tasks and responsibilities to others. What is legacy? Legacy, was it Philip Yancey who said it's the wake a ship leaves in the water long after it's passed out of view? Legacy is the deposit we leave in other people, the difference we help make in their lives. Delegation at its core is about making better people. It's about building better leaders. It's about helping people go beyond what they are now and have the capacity and capability to be better problem solvers, better decision makers, right? But again, that takes a secure leader who doesn't feel like they need to be the center of the room. If you're insecure, you're going to be really challenged by really smart people around you. So we tend to hire to our degree of ego comfort.
But I think that's so important what you've just said there, Eric. It's that insecure leader, which can show up in so many different ways, right? And we talked about ego. It's not enough to say to somebody, well, you got to delegate more. Right. Because if they don't know how, or they have something internal that some subscript that's telling them, oh, for the love of God, do not delegate because this will happen, that was formed way back in their life.
Right.
You're never going to get them to make those changes. And so part of what we do and do so well at Rhapsody is we help those leaders find that internal dialogue, change the internal dialogue with the tools and the training that we've had, but doing it in a, dare I say, gentle way, because for many of us, changing ourselves internally can be, especially the ways that we've learned how to do it, can be torturous.
Right. Yeah, agreed 100%. I think part of what our differentiator is as a company is our ability. If you've got business challenges, whatever business challenges are holding you back, we can help you with those. Whatever team challenges are holding you back, we can help you find a better way forward. And whatever personal internal obstacles or leadership challenges that you're facing as a leader, we can help you with those as well. And that's usually the realm of different types. We bring together a number of modalities that I think create a really winning combination for leaders. Let's shift gears, if we might, back to we're talking a lot about both business mastery skills, personal mastery skills. Let's face it, leaders have never been in more trouble than they are today. Leaders were already, the stats were already frightening about the rate of burnout, the rate of just like stress being over the top. And then COVID showed up, said, hold my beer, and made it that much worse, right? And now leaders are trying to adjust to this new world post-COVID and all these battles. What conversations are you having with your leaders around the management of stress, the management of anxiety, the management of their own internal world and mindset in the midst of all the pressures that they have?
Overload and restoration. Overload and restoration. Overload and restoration. That's how we build muscle. It's how we build endurance physically, but also when it comes to our emotions, our mental health, is that yes, of course there's high demands and there's going to be overload moments when I'm working hard and I'm putting out a fire or I'm developing a plan that's really important. But it's also something that I have to be very intentional to say, I'm not just an overload leader. I'm also a restorative leader. I know how to rest. I know how to unplug. I know how to switch my context from work Steve to playful Steve or Grandpa Steve or whatever it might be, and very intentionally. And I love the word, Eric, that mindful leadership, mindful business owners, mindful, just being very aware that I can't just stay on redlining it constantly, and then bring that red line mindset into my home life or with my friends or
to your teams
or your teams, right? Yeah. And so it's knowing how to go hard, but it's also knowing how to just calm down, relax, and rest. I know that's really basic. You think we'd have it figured out by now, but at the same time, our world, hustle culture, is go, 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 push, 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 and it's like a badge of honor to be exhausted,
right?
And burnout is no badge of honor. I've been through it. It's hell.
I've been there too.
It's hell. And so learning how to restore and being really intentional. And I love when my coaching conversations, we go into that conversation and we talk about what do you do after work? How do you rest? How do you let go of your toxic emotions? Yeah. What if someone loses their shit on you during the day? How do you let go of that before you get home to your kids or your spouse or whatever it is? And so those kinds of conversations I think are really vital.
And burnout doesn't happen because you're working hard. or you're working long hours, or even because you had an interaction at work that's really bad, and how do I not bring that home to my kids?
Right.
Burnout doesn't happen because of that stuff. Burnout happens because you're doing things that are misaligned or not aligned at all with what matters to you, to your values, to what is your purpose. If you're living out of your values in your work and everything else, you can work 80 hours in a week and feel energized and ready to go and not feeling, I need to now decompress or rest, right? When you are living out of your purpose, that's when life becomes truly worth living. And that's why, we get away from just saying, just go figure it out. And that's why the challenge was introduced in the first place.
I remember when you told us about how you finally came to a place where when you went on vacation, it wasn't to restore.
Well, and
it was to have
honestly,
fun.
For me, that has been a while that I've been able to do that. That is absolutely the case. We hear it all the time from people who say, I go on vacation. It takes me 2 or 3 days to decompress. No.
Or it takes me the whole
it takes me the whole time. I come home and now I'm anxious about what's waiting for me to get home. I can go on vacation and I'm decompressed 2 days before I've left. Right? I mean, you're
Hey-o.
If leaders want to know, like, where am I in that? The only time they need to check in with themselves is Sunday night.
Right.
How you feeling about work tomorrow?
Right.
And that the answer to that question will tell them how close they are aligned between the purpose of that they're living out in their lives and the nature and the activities of the work that they have,
and how likely they are that they're leading to a burnout.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because they say suffering is pain without meaning. Right? Yeah. We're going to experience pain. Yeah. We're going to get that, but when we can't align any kind of meaning, like this is hard. I don't know why it hurts. I don't know what I get. I don't know where it's going. All of that kind of stuff. That's a kind of suffering that leads to burnout. When we can make sure that what we're doing is aligned with what matters to us, the work actually becomes energizing. And that's not an excuse to say now you can work even more. No, it's about craft your life the way you need to, but to find the alignment between those pieces as you work your way through. The thing is, it goes to a core skill, though, I think, for our personal mastery, which is you can't do that without reflection. Right. Yeah. You have to create time to look around and go, what's going on? What's going on with me? And if it's Sunday nights, I'm going to check in with myself. Yeah. And maybe I'm going to score myself for the next 6 weeks on Sunday evening on about scale of 1 to 10. How excited or aligned do I feel with my work? Right. And start to say, what actions can I take over the next 6 weeks to bring that to a better score, to where I want that to be? You can take that reflection and then do the other critical part, which is put it into some kind of tangible action.
I just had this, I love that you're bringing, and that's such an important aspect, I think, of mindful leadership is some reflective practice in your life where you're checking in and you're learning more actively from what you're experiencing. I think most of us, a lot of leaders just live their lives with their heads down and they're leaving lessons on the table all the time. It feels like meaningless suffering, right? Because we're not applying. We're just moving on to the next item on our to-do list. I had a group of leaders I was talking to, senior leadership in a pretty large organization, and the owner, the main part, the majority partner is very frustrated. He said, my leaders just aren't there yet. And I'd heard him say this now about 3-4 times. And so I challenged him. I said, Matt, how will you know when they're there? Which the entire room went quiet. They all kind of, like, what do you mean by there? What is there?
What is there?
What look like? Right? Well, this turned a series of conversations, and make a long story short, they identified 6 characteristics that they believe are essential to being an effective leader in that organization. I was part of a conversation last week where they introduced this to their middle managers, and they had developed not only clear, like what are these 6 characteristics, but a self-assessment to say, how do you think you're doing on this? And what was really powerful is they went first as leaders. So the 3 of them introduce the self-assessment. I encourage everyone to kind of do it and then look for maybe 2 or 3 areas of improvement. And then these 3 leaders went first and said, here's where I think I need to improve. And one of the leaders, her area of growth was to practice more reflection. Right. But often, again, we don't know what we're moving towards.
No.
Because we're kind of flying blind. And I think reflection reflection to me is like a leadership superpower. Like that is probably your most where you will see.
Toughest thing to get people to do.
Because it takes time.
It takes time. It takes time, right? And so how do you encourage your leaders to practice more of that?
Get them to schedule it.
Right. Yeah.
And I get them to put it in their calendar while we're on the call and to invite me as part of that time. They invite me to the meeting to the time that they've blocked. And then at random, I check in. I'll send them a quick note in that moment.
Are you doing it?
Yeah. Basically like check in going, are you there doing it right now? What did you learn? And then we check in on it when we have our conversation saying, what did you observe? And very often the bit of feedback I get at the beginning is, I don't know what I'm doing to reflect. What am I reflecting on? And so we'll start to craft a few questions that they can use about, go explore this. What did you observe about how your team was functioning this week? When you look at it, what was functioning just the way you had hoped, and what needs some work, or what processes are clear, or where do we fit relative to other groups, or how aligned do I think I am with my team, and what would be the evidence that would prove it? So not just what I think they are. It's like, no, prove it. Like, let's make the case around it. But I think helping them block the time and then providing some tools to start that practice of reflection, because then over time, it gets easier and easier.
Yeah, 100%.
I find you actually have to, or I have had to actually teach them how to time block. And I don't mean, hey, I'm going to do this from 2 till 3. That's not enough. It's how do you create sacred time? Whether it's for reflection or restoration or to go and work out or whatever.
Working on an important part of your business.
Or working on an important part, working on the business, right? But that sacred time, how do you create it? And sometimes what I'll do is I'll use the example of like, well, when was the last time you went to the dentist? And they'll say, well, I don't know, 6 months ago. Yeah. Did you take your cell phone with you? Yeah. Okay. Did it ever ring while you were at the dentist? Yeah. Did you answer it? No, I couldn't. My mouth was full. It's like, right.
So we're going to freeze you in a chair and teach you how to reflect. That's a great plan.
But it helps them recognize that, yeah, you know what? I do this. I already have done this. It's not that it's impossible. I just
tell myself it is.
I just tell myself that it is.
I use something similar. I get them to treat that time. I want you to pretend this is your most important client. Would you just move that meeting without careful planning? Would you like treat that relationship with that much disregard, right? Like, no, if it was your best client, your number one client, you would keep that meeting come hell or high water. You need to start treating those moments in time that are critical to, one, your own well-being and to becoming a more effective leader. Treat it just like you would treat that meeting. Right?
And it comes back to beliefs.
Yeah,
it really does. It really comes back to your beliefs around.
Yeah,
it does. I think also helping them understand that function of reflection cannot be delegated.
Yeah.
Only
what I can't give that to right? I gotta tell. I was told I need to delegate more. So EA here.
Yeah, I'd like you to do some
reflection
for me,
shall we?
And I think that's an important one, is to recognize what in a role or a function can be delegated and what can't. And that is a function that only they can do. Only they cannot hand that to anybody else. They own that. And if they're not doing it, right, then there's a gap there in their leadership.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Well, it's the what's the old saying? The one thing we learn about history is that we don't learn from history. We tend to, without reflection, you tend to stay stuck in the same cycles and patterns of behavior and not learn the lesson. And again, we've said it on the show before. I think the universe is a wonderful thing. You don't really fail the test. You just keep getting to take it over and over again until you pass. And so until you learn the lesson, chances are you'll keep running into similar scenarios, perhaps in different contexts with different players, but that's going to keep showing up until you learn what you're meant to learn. And reflection helps to accelerate that process. I had one person who I posted a video on reflection not long ago, a reel on it, and the person said, "This is how I'm trying to live my life. I hate loop-de-loops." That's brilliant. I don't want to be stuck in a loop-de-loop.
Oh
right?
my God.
Yeah.
But you know, what you were saying about beliefs, what a perfect thing to reflect on.
Yeah.
Right.
There's what you use your reflection time on. What are some of my beliefs? Where I'm finding gaps in the organization or where I'm finding interactions that aren't working well, what are my beliefs about those?
Right.
Because guaranteed, that's what's driving your behaviors.
You have one.
Yeah, and I think again, that's part of the difference. It's most traditional business coaches focus primarily just on business issues, right? Business tactics, business processes, right? Best practices, that kind of stuff. The average leadership coach focuses primarily just on leadership competencies, right? And best practices. And both those modalities are extremely useful. But I think that component that we bring in around mindset, around beliefs, personal mastery, helping leaders look under the hood more often, right? I remember the first time I pulled out the feelings wheel with one of my clients, and he was looking at me kind of sideways, and yet within like just a couple of minutes, we were able to get to what was going on internally that he couldn't articulate. So even teaching people the emotional self-regulation and the mindset skills to better manage the stress and the pressure of day-to-day life. And again, leaders face more pressure than the average human being because there's more on their shoulders. And when we don't work on that, I think that's also a big contributor. I agree 100% that most burnout is misalignment, but also it's like I just don't know how to cope.
Yeah, it is effort. It is effort, right? Yeah. The beginning of your career, you don't have experience, you don't have expertise. You may have some education. So you get thrown into a new role and you want to do good. You have one move, which is energy.
Right.
I'll give 110%. And
that's problematic, by the way.
It's so problematic. That's where I'm headed.
There's only 100%.
It gets worse though. Because we magnify it.
Right.
What happens is we just keep working our way. We say, "I'll just outwork the problem."
Yeah.
I'll just outwork the problem. Yeah. And so the thing is, you can do it at the beginning.
Yeah.
Most people don't have families or complex lives or all kinds of stuff. It's like them, maybe a partner of some kind, and they're living it out and they're both giving 110%, or they're all giving 110%, whatever that looks like. The challenge is, as you start to increase your range of accountability, you only know one move.
Yeah.
Right. Which is work it into the ground. The problem with it is some tasks, like take out the garbage, you don't need to give that 110%. You need to give that like 2%. You want to give it, to your point about wisdom earlier, the right measure of energy and attention. And the thing is, if you've learned that you get ahead in business by giving 110% in everything you do, then as the range of your accountability expands, you won't hand stuff off because the other people won't give it 110%, and it just drives you into the ground.
Yeah.
And so it's only a matter of time before people who are shooting up in terms of their ability to perform and rise to the organization hit this threshold, and it's not working, and they're in panic mode. And that's where these shifts have to play out if you want to make it. And I think that's where a lot of the burnout starts.
What got you here ain't going to get you there.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't out hustle and out muscle everything.
No.
And what is it? We spend most of our 20s, 30s, and 40s often constructing this false self that we think the world expects of us, only some of the population wake up to the fact that this isn't working. Others just keep trying, but some people wake up and say, this isn't working for me. And if they do have that awakening, they then spend the rest of their lives discovering their true self and bringing that forward more, right? But there's so much that goes into leadership, and so important that people need to begin to learn the skills of looking inside, figuring out what's going on, and have better tools. Like we talked about how conflict and dangerous conversations without a format, without a formula or a structure or a model, that can be really hard to do. I think, again, managing your inner world, it's more possible than people think, right? But they haven't been taught those models, and that's part of the work, I think the important work that we do. Guys, lightning round, final word of advice to leaders that are listening today, whether they be a business owner or the leader of a department, but they have that leadership mantle that they wear. Final words of wisdom in a lightning round format, starting with Trav.
I would say it's not about how much effort you can give, it's how effectively you can align things.
Yeah, love that.
Powerful. I would say look at into your life. Where is the anxiety? Where is that pain? We talked about pain management is time management. Time management is pain management.
Yeah.
Write down what those anxious things are, those overwhelmed things are, and then circle them and just dig in deep to those. And maybe it's with a therapist, maybe it's with a coach or a good friend, and find someone to talk about that with. You don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, smart.
You don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah, I would say stop separating me as a leader and then me as a person, right? Stop trying to treat those as completely different people or personas, right? Like you are both together as one, and you need to be able to create and understand who am I, period. Who am I? And then be able to find how that's expressed in my leadership and in all the other hats that I might be wearing in life.
Yeah, love it.
And I would say slow down. Like you can't reflect. You can't look at your beliefs. You can't change yourself internally if you don't slow down and take the time to look at the big picture. Just slow down.
Yeah, love it. I think I would say effective leadership begins at home. You can't lead others effectively if you struggle to lead yourself. And that it's not weakness to ask for help.
That's so important.
Actually, that's strength and courage. I think it was one of our recent guests, Matthew Rippeyung, who said that vulnerability makes you really, really tough. I'm going to watch my language. I'll let, he said it differently, but vulnerability is actually a superpower, right? Guys, this has been such a great conversation on leadership. I know, again, we could talk all three subjects that we've covered in the 3 episodes we've done over the last several weeks and months. We talked about business. We talked about teams. We talked today about leadership. We could talk about any of those subjects for hours and hours and hours and hours. It's what we do every day. But thank you on behalf of our listeners, thank you for your wisdom and sharing that with them. Living Richly Nation, thanks again for tuning in. We couldn't do this without you. We hope you found today's conversation useful. And if there's a leader in your network that you know could benefit from hearing this conversation today, please share it with them. It might be just the boost that they need. We encourage you to check out our website, livingrichly.me. You'll find out about the Living Richly Challenge that we referred to earlier. Also, the Living Richly Nation, our Facebook group, where you can get tons of support and be aligned with other people on a similar journey of living their best life. And finally, if you're looking for help in your business, with your team, in your leadership, we would love to help you. We've served thousands of leaders, hundreds of organizations, and we'd love to be a support to you. You can find out more about us at rhapsodystrategies.com. Folks, again, thank you so much for your ongoing support. And until next time, get out there and live your best life.